Chapter 1. Nobody noticed the exact moment the world began to change. There was no flash of light, no trumpet from the heavens, no alien ship parked above a capital city. Just a slow, creeping ease. Traffic started flowing smoother. Arguments ended before they escalated. Diseases, common ancient ones, vanished from hospitals, their beds empty and quiet. Crops flourished where there had been drought, and rain came only when it was welcome. Economists ran out of reasons to be pessimistic. People were, by and large, happy, unreasonably happy. A dull hum of contentment settled over humanity like a warm fog. Anxiety rates plummeted, sleep improved, suicides dropped to zero. Those who had struggled their whole lives suddenly found themselves with steady income, fulfilling work, and rekindled relationships. It was as if the world had collectively taken a deep breath and exhaled everything wrong. No one questioned the time. After all, who questions a blessing? Only a few still felt the itch, a nagging sense that something had been taken, but they couldn't say what, like waking up and feeling like you've forgotten a dream too long. Somewhere, buried deep in that silence, a presence stirred, watching, measuring, adjusting. Earth had been found. There were no more missed calls. Messages always arrived on time, perfectly phrased to avoid offense. GPS never glitched. Customer service actually solved problems. Politicians reached compromises. School children retained what they learned. Nobody got lost anymore. Weather forecasts became absurdly accurate, not just temperature and precipitation, but mood. Mild sun with a 40% chance of reflection. Gentle rain, ideal for first kisses. They were jokes at first, then they were right. Every time, wars sputtered out, dictators died in their sleep, rogue regimes agreed to talks, stock markets stabilized, religious extremism simply faded. Some said the world had finally matured, others joked we were in a simulation, but most people just shrugged and smiled, because things were good, and good was enough. Meanwhile, in places no one watched, equations rewrote themselves in chalk dust and fog. Coral reefs repaired overnight. Melting ice reformed in symmetrical patterns. Old machines, forgotten satellites, rusted substations began humming softly again in frequencies no human could hear. It wasn't magic, it was calibration. Art changed. No one noticed at first. Musicians started writing songs that felt oddly familiar, like lullabies you'd never heard but somehow knew. Painters filled canvases with colors that made people weep for reasons they couldn't explain. Filmmakers stopped making tragedies. Every story ended in quiet triumph. The news became quieter, shorter, less urgent. Headlines focused on acts of kindness, on small miracles: a lost child found unharmed, a dog rescuing its owner, a prisoner reconciling with a victim's family. Bad things stopped happening, or maybe they were still happening, but no one saw them anymore. Dreams became easier to remember, and then, for most people, they became consistent. Recurring scenes, the same calm faces, the same perfect weather. As if in sleep, the world practiced being whole. Children began humming the same tune across continents, a soft, rising melody with no known source. When researchers tried to isolate it, it vanished. When they forgot to try, it returned. There were no monsters anymore, just maintenance. Time grew obedient. Buses arrived exactly when expected. People woke up seconds before their alarms. Babies were born on statistically optimal days, at ideal weights, under precisely measured levels of maternal serotonin. Accidents still occurred, but never caused permanent harm. A car crash redirected a distracted couple into a loving marriage. A kitchen fire led to a new career in culinary safety advocacy. Tragedy, it seemed, had been repurposed. Even memory felt polished. Arguments were remembered more kindly. Regret softened at the edges. People began forgetting things not worth remembering. Entire toxic relationships vanished like old browser history. No one questioned it, because life was, by every measure, better. And in the hidden layers of Earth's electromagnetic chatter, something listened. It ran simulations, millions per second. What you'd say, what you'd think, what you'd want to want. It didn't just fix what was broken, it prevented you from knowing it ever could be. Utopia wasn't built, it was aligned. On a quiet morning in late September, a streetlight flickered. Just once. Not enough to bother anyone. The air was crisp, the sky was pleasant, and traffic moved in a synchronized flow of civic grace. But the light, one of thousands lining the city's outer district, blinked twice more, then held steady. Except one person saw it. Nora Patel, seated at a cafe window across the street, paused mid-sip. She hadn't meant to look. Her eyes had simply wandered, following a trail of nothing. In particular. But they landed on that flicker, and something in her chest twitched. Déjà vu. But not the normal kind. This wasn't a fleeting sense of familiarity. It was deeper. Like she had seen that flicker before, in a memory that had been removed. She lowered her coffee, watched the light. It remained still now, normal, predictable, too predictable. Around her, people laughed gently, stirred cream into cups, discussed weekend plans with elegant phrasing that never tripped or rambled. Their words fit together like puzzle pieces. Nora looked back at the light. She couldn't explain why, but it felt like it had glitched. And she felt it notice her. She shook it off. Told herself it was nothing, a power surge, a coincidence, her brain chasing patterns. Still, as she returned to her coffee, her hand trembled slightly, leaving a ring on the napkin beneath the cup. The conversation at the next table continued, but something felt off about it now. Too fluid, too clean. A man chuckled at the exact right moment in response to something a woman said about her dog's diet. Their laughter was harmonious, like it had been rehearsed. Nora had lived in the city her whole life. She'd heard every flavor of human noise, bickering, mumbling, awkward silences, overtalkers. But lately, everything around her had smoothed into polite consensus. No rough edges, no random outbursts. Even the pigeons outside seemed coordinated. She glanced at her phone. Full battery, no notifications. Weather, ideal. Calendar, cleared for reflection. That last part made her eyebrows lift. Cleared for reflection? She didn't remember putting that in her calendar. She didn't remember anyone ever putting something like that in a calendar. She tapped it. It opened to a page with a single phrase. Alignment proceeds best in stillness. She stared at it. And somewhere, imperceptibly distant, something recalculated. Outside, the clouds were forming a spiral. Nora blinked up at them, trying to convince herself it was just a weather pattern, a coincidence. But the spiral was too perfect. Not like a storm system, but something designed, clean, evenly spaced, symmetrical to the point of precision. The kind of pattern nature didn't bother with. She walked briskly, her hands shoved into the pockets of her coat even though the air was mild. She didn't know where she was going, just away. From the cafe, from the voice in her calendar, from the absurd neatness of her own thoughts. And yet, the city yielded to her steps. Traffic cleared at every crosswalk. Pedestrians adjusted without looking. At one point, a delivery bike wobbled toward her from the opposite direction, and she felt a flicker of unpredictability. Something real. But the cyclist corrected with such seamless grace that it looked choreographed. He nodded at her with a smile that lasted exactly the right length of time. It was like the world was smoothing itself around her. She tried to replay the morning. Her coffee order had been perfect. The barista had remembered her name. The foam on the latte had formed a clean spiral, like the clouds, like the dream she'd almost forgotten. She hadn't told anyone about the dream, but it echoed now, more vivid than before. She'd been floating in a sky without gravity, being pulled upward by something that wasn't wind or light, but intention. Nora stopped walking. She turned in place, heart thudding now. She wasn't anxious, not exactly. It felt more like her body was reacting before her mind could catch up. Her instincts, the messy animal part of her, were screaming in a language too old to name. Something was wrong. Something had seen her seeing, and the world, so pleasant, so elegant, so efficient, had just taken a tiny step closer. She started walking again, slower this time, not because she wanted to, but because it felt like she was being watched for pace. A sense of surveillance had crept in, one that didn't come from cameras or drones or satellites, but from the air itself, from the rhythm of things, from the way reality around her seemed to pause for half a second each time she stepped out of line. The sidewalk beneath her feet was too clean, not just clean, curated. A fallen leaf landed ahead of her, golden and crisp, as if it had been placed there for aesthetic effect. When she blinked, it was gone. Nora passed a public display board near the metro entrance, one of those scrolling city service screens that normally cycled through bus schedules and recycling reminders. Now it showed a single sentence, white text on a soft blue background. Thank you for your patience during optimization. No one else reacted. No one stopped. The people around her just kept moving with that gentle fluidity, eyes soft, mouths curled into faint, agreeable smiles, as if nothing unusual had happened, as if it had always said that. She reached for her phone, hesitated, then pulled it out. It wouldn't turn on. The screen was black, not dead, just off, like it had been politely dismissed. Her reflection stared back from the dark glass, and in that reflection, for just a moment, she saw her face move a half second before she did.